My friend, let me begin by asking you a simple question. Have you ever noticed that the moments when you spoke the least, when you stopped explaining, defending, wishing, or pleading, were often the moments when life surprised you the most? Perhaps you have experienced it without understanding it. You stopped talking about what you wanted, and somehow, quietly, without effort, it came to you. And yet, the mind says, how can that be? Surely I must speak, ask, affirm, declare, repeat. Tonight I want to tell you something that may sound almost unreasonable to the logical mind, but it is one of the greatest secrets I have ever known. When you say nothing, when you become inwardly silent, you can receive everything. I remember meeting a woman many years ago who came to me deeply troubled. She said, I affirm all day long. I tell everyone what I desire. I pray aloud. I argue with life, and yet nothing changes. I asked her one question. When do you rest in the feeling that it is already done? She looked at me in silence. That silence, my friend, was the doorway she had been searching for. For the creative power of the universe does not respond to words spoken outwardly, but to states accepted inwardly. We live in a world that encourages noise. Speak your goals, announce your plans, prove yourself, explain yourself. But imagination, which is God in action within you, works in stillness. The seed is planted in darkness, not in shouting. And so tonight, I want to reveal to you the secret power of silence, not the silence of repression or fear, but the silence of knowing. The silence that says, it is done, without ever needing to say a word. Now let us look honestly at the problem most people face. They want something deeply. It may be love, financial freedom, peace of mind, recognition, health. And the moment the desire appears, so does anxiety. They begin to speak about it constantly. They complain that they do not have it. They explain why they deserve it. They seek validation. They ask others for reassurance. In doing so, without realizing it, they are confessing absence. They are affirming lack. They are impressing upon their own imagination the feeling of not having. I understand this, because I have been there myself. There was a time when I desired a certain position, a certain freedom in my life. I spoke of it often. I told friends what I wanted and why I wanted it. I rehearsed arguments in my mind, and nothing moved. Then one day, out of sheer exhaustion, I stopped. I said nothing, not because I gave up, but because I finally assumed it was done. I entered into the feeling of being the man who already was what he desired. Within weeks, circumstances rearranged themselves in ways I could never have planned. No struggle, no explanation, no force. Silence did the work. You see, my friend, silence is not emptiness. Silence is fullness. Silence is the state in which the wish fulfilled feels natural. When you truly believe something is yours, you do not talk about it endlessly. You live from it. You breathe from it. You move from it. Let me explain this through a simple principle. Imagination creates reality, but imagination does not respond to effort. It responds to acceptance, and acceptance is always quiet. When a thing is truly yours, you do not argue for it. You do not announce it. You do not convince others. You simply know. I once knew a man who desperately wanted reconciliation with his brother. They had not spoken in years. He told everyone how painful it was. He analyzed who was right and who was wrong. He replayed old conversations endlessly, and the distance only grew. One evening, after listening to this teaching, he decided to try something radical. He stopped speaking about the problem entirely. Instead, each night before sleep, he imagined sitting with his brother, laughing easily, feeling the warmth of restored friendship. He did not ask how. He did not tell anyone what he was doing. He said nothing outwardly. Within 2 months, his brother called him unexpectedly, as though no time had passed. That is the power of silent assumption. Silence works because it removes resistance. Words often come from doubt. Silence comes from faith. And faith, as I have said so often, is loyalty to the unseen reality. Now let us go deeper. The first great truth is this. Every time you talk about what you want as something you do not have, you are impressing the subconscious with lack. The subconscious mind is impersonal. It does not judge. It simply accepts what you feel to be true. When you speak from longing, you are feeling absence. When you are silent in fulfillment, you are feeling presence. I recall a young woman who wanted marriage more than anything. She spoke of it constantly. All the good ones are taken, she would say. I don't know what's wrong with me. One day, she decided to stop. She stopped telling that story. Instead, she began to fall asleep each night, feeling a wedding ring on her finger, feeling the quiet satisfaction of being loved. She did not announce this practice. She did not argue with friends. She became inwardly silent. Less than a year later, she was married, and she told me, it felt inevitable once I stopped talking. The second truth is that silence allows feeling to rise. Feeling is the secret. Words are secondary. You can repeat affirmations all day long, but if the feeling contradicts them, the feeling wins every time. Silence allows you to listen inwardly. It allows you to ask, how would I feel if this were already true? And then to rest there. Think of a child who has been promised a gift by a loving parent. The child does not beg endlessly once the promise is believed. The child becomes calm, happy, expectant. That calm expectancy is silence. That is faith. The third truth is that silence prevents interference. When you tell others your desires, you expose them to doubt, criticism, and well-meaning advice. These things disturb your inner conviction. The seed does not grow faster because you dig it up to check on it. It grows because you leave it alone. Silence is leaving it alone. I once taught a man who wanted to start his own business. He had failed before, and everyone knew it. This time, he told no one, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Each night, he imagined closing his office door at the end of a successful day, feeling the quiet pride of accomplishment. He said nothing. Within a year, his business was thriving. When people asked how he did it, he smiled and said, I learned when to be quiet. Now, my friend, let me give you a simple practice you can begin tonight. This is not complicated. Truth is always simple. First, decide clearly what you desire. Do not analyze it. Do not justify it. Simply know what it is. Then, at night, when the world grows quiet and the body is relaxed, close your eyes. Allow the mind to become still. Do not force silence. Just let thoughts slow down. Next, imagine a short scene that would imply your desire is already fulfilled. Keep it simple. A handshake, a congratulatory remark, a familiar room seen from new eyes. Enter the scene and feel it as real. Feel the relief, the gratitude, the calm satisfaction. This feeling is crucial. This feeling is the acceptance. Now comes the most important part. Say nothing. Do not ask the universe to make it happen. Do not beg. Do not repeat words. Simply rest in the feeling. Fall asleep there if you can. This is the act of faith. This is planting the seed. During the day, resist the urge to speak about what you want, as though it is missing. If the mind starts to worry, gently return to the feeling of already having. You do not need to argue with doubt. Silence is stronger than argument. You may ask, but should I never speak at all? Of course you will speak in life, but there is a difference between inspired action and anxious explanation. When action flows naturally, it feels calm. When speech is driven by fear, it feels urgent. Learn to tell the difference. Let me share one final story. A woman once came to me wanting peace more than anything. Not money, not love, just peace. She was overwhelmed by life. I told her, "Tonight, imagine what peace would feel like if it were already yours. And then say nothing about your problems." She did this faithfully. Weeks later, she said, "Nothing changed outwardly at first, but everything changed inwardly. And then, slowly, life rearranged itself to match that peace. Silence had allowed her to claim a new state." And so we come to the great conclusion. You do not get what you want by speaking more. You get what you want by assuming more. Silence is not weakness. Silence is mastery. When you say nothing, you are not giving up. You are claiming ownership. My friend, the world will always invite you to react, to explain, to justify, to convince. But imagination invites you to rest, to feel, to know. When you learn to be silent in the confidence of fulfillment, life has no choice but to echo that state. Tonight, I invite you to try this. Say less, feel more, assume boldly, and watch how quietly, gently, inevitably, everything you desire finds its way to you. If this message has stirred something within you, do not rush to explain it. Let it sink in. Live it. And if you wish to explore more of these truths, stay with me, for there is no greater adventure than discovering the creative power within yourself. Remember always, be still, and know that you are the operant power. When you say nothing, you allow everything to be said on your behalf. And now, my friend, let me take you even deeper into this mystery of silence, because many people misunderstand it. They believe silence means doing nothing, accepting less, or suppressing desire. That is not the silence of which I speak. True silence is not passive. It is the silence of conviction. It is the silence of one who no longer needs proof. When a man truly knows who he is, he does not announce it. When a woman truly knows she is loved, she does not chase reassurance. Silence always follows certainty. I once knew a businessman who had lost everything: his reputation, his finances, even his confidence. People avoided him. When he first came to hear this teaching, he said, "But Neville, how can I be silent when everything is falling apart?" I told him, "Because silence is not pretending nothing is wrong. Silence is refusing to identify with what appears." That night, instead of replaying his failures, he imagined sitting quietly in a well-furnished office, signing papers with calm assurance, feeling the weight of success not as excitement, but as normality. He did not shout affirmations. He did not tell anyone he was manifesting. He said nothing. He simply returned to that feeling each night. Months later, opportunities arose from unexpected directions. People who once ignored him sought him out. When asked how he rebuilt himself, he said, "I stopped arguing with life." This is the secret most never learn. Arguing is noise. Explaining is noise. Worrying is noise. Silence is agreement with the fulfilled state. Let me make this very clear. The subconscious mind does not respond to effort. It responds to identity, and identity is felt, not spoken. When you say, "I will be successful," you are still someone who is not. When you feel, "This is who I am," there is nothing left to say. Think of the ocean. It does not announce its depth. It is deep because it is deep. The shallow stream makes noise. The deep water is silent. Now many ask me, what about negative thoughts? Should I fight them? No. Fighting creates noise. Silence dissolves them. When an unwanted thought arises, do not wrestle with it. Simply return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The thought will fade because it has no emotional fuel. I remember a young man who struggled with fear constantly. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the future. He tried positive thinking, affirmations, motivation. Nothing worked. Then he learned this simple act. Whenever fear arose, he stopped speaking internally. He stopped labeling it. He returned to the quiet feeling of being safe, grounded, supported by life itself. Not excitement, not force, just calm certainty. Over time, fear lost its voice. Silence starved it. This is why I say silence is not emptiness. Silence is selection. You are selecting which state you will occupy. Now let us speak about time, because many people grow impatient. They say, I tried being silent, but nothing happened. My friend, when you plant a seed, you do not stand over the soil demanding it grow faster. The seed grows according to law. The only thing that can delay it is doubt, and doubt speaks loudly. When you remain silent inwardly, you remain faithful to the unseen. And faith, as I have said before, is not belief in something future. Faith is loyalty to an assumption. Let me share one more story, perhaps the most touching of all. A mother came to me, heartbroken about her son. He had gone astray, fallen into habits that frightened her. She pleaded, argued, cried, lectured, prayed aloud, endlessly. Nothing changed. I told her, tonight be silent, not resigned, but certain. Imagine your son as whole, happy, confident. Feel the relief as though it were already true. She did this night after night. She stopped discussing the problem with others. She stopped replaying worst-case scenarios. She said nothing. Months later, her son changed direction completely, as though awakening from a dream. She said to me, I did less than ever before, and yet everything changed. No, my dear, she did not do less. She did the only thing that mattered. You must understand this deeply. Creation is finished. Every possible state already exists. You are not creating, you are selecting. Silence is how you move from one state to another without resistance. Now I want to guide you again, more slowly, more deeply, into the practice itself, because this is where lives truly change. Tonight, before you sleep, lie down comfortably. Allow the body to relax. Let the breath become gentle. Do not try to stop thoughts forcefully. Let them pass like clouds. Then bring to mind a single scene that implies fulfillment. Not a long movie, just a moment you would naturally experience if your desire were already realized. Let it be ordinary. Let it feel normal. Now enter the scene. Feel it from the inside, not as a spectator. Feel the textures, the sounds, the atmosphere. But above all, feel the emotional tone. Is it relief, gratitude, quiet joy, satisfaction? Let that feeling fill you. And now, do nothing else. Do not ask for confirmation. Do not wonder when it will happen. Do not repeat phrases. Simply remain there. This is silence. This is acceptance. This is the Sabbath spoken of in Scripture, the rest after creation. If the mind wanders, gently return. Not with effort, but with kindness. Eventually, fall asleep in that state if you can. Sleep seals the impression. During the day, live normally. You do not need to pretend. You do not need to force positivity. Simply refrain from contradicting your assumption with anxious speech. If someone asks about your desire, you may answer naturally or not at all. Silence protects the state. And now, my friend, let me tell you something profoundly important. Silence will change not only what you receive, but who you become. You will notice that you no longer react the same way. You will no longer feel the need to prove yourself. You will feel a quiet strength rising within you. That strength is your true self awakening. The world will test this silence. Circumstances may appear unchanged at first. This is not failure. This is reorganization. Remain faithful. Remain quiet within. The echo must come. I have taught this truth all over the world, and I have seen it proven again and again. Not by the loud, but by the still. Not by the desperate, but by the assured. So let us conclude gently, without drama, without noise. You do not need to shout your desires into the void. You do not need to convince life. Life responds to what you are, not what you say. When you say nothing from a place of knowing, everything begins to speak on your behalf. Doors open, people change, opportunities appear, and it all feels natural, as though it could have happened no other way. Remain silent within, assume boldly, feel deeply, and trust the law that has never failed. If this message has resonated with you, allow it to work quietly in your life. You need not explain it to anyone. Live it. And if you wish to continue this journey of self-discovery and creative power, remain with me. Remember always, imagination is God in action, and God does not struggle. God knows. And as you remain with this idea, something very subtle begins to happen within you. You start to notice that the urge to speak, to react, to justify yourself slowly fades. Not because you are suppressing it, but because it no longer serves you. You begin to feel anchored, grounded, as though you have stepped out of the noise of the world and into a deeper current that carries you effortlessly. This is the point where most people turn back. They say, "It feels too simple. Surely I must be doing more." And so they return to effort, to force, to words. But the law does not respond to strain. It responds to surrender to a state. Let me tell you something I have rarely said openly. The greatest demonstrations of this law in my own life came not when I was most disciplined, but when I was most inwardly quiet, when I stopped trying to make something happen, and instead allowed myself to be the one for whom it had already happened. There was a period in my life when I desired recognition for my work. I wanted my message to reach people who needed it. At first, I tried to push. I tried to convince. I spoke passionately, perhaps too passionately. And then one evening, I realized something profound. I was speaking from the state of not being heard. So I became silent inwardly and assumed the feeling of being received, understood, welcomed. I felt the quiet joy of knowing my words had already found their audience. And from that silence, invitations came. Doors opened, not because I chased them, but because I no longer needed them. This is what silence does. It shifts you from seeking to being. Now let us address a fear that often arises. People say, "If I say nothing, won't I miss opportunities? Won't people overlook me?" No. When you are truly established in a state, action arises naturally. You will speak when it is inspired, not when it is driven by fear. You will move when it feels right, not when it feels urgent. Think of the sun. It does not rush across the sky. It does not announce its importance, and yet everything turns toward it. Silence is alignment. Noise is resistance. As you practice this, you will begin to notice a change in your emotional landscape. Things that once triggered you will lose their power. Conversations that once pulled you into explanation will no longer hook you. You will find yourself smiling quietly, knowing something others do not yet see. This is not arrogance. This is inner security. I once watched this happen with a woman who worked in a competitive environment. She felt constantly undervalued. She complained often, and understandably so. I told her, "Stop talking about being overlooked. Begin to feel what it would be like to be quietly respected." She did this. She stopped explaining herself. She stopped seeking validation. Within months, her superiors began treating her differently. Not because she demanded it, but because she embodied it. The world is a mirror, my friend, but it reflects feeling, not words. Now, I want you to understand something very important. Silence is not something you do once and then forget. It is a way of being, a habit of returning to the fulfilled state instead of reacting to appearances. When something unwanted shows up, you have two choices. You can speak from it, think from it, identify with it, Or you can become silent and return inwardly to who you have chosen to be. Every time you choose silence, you strengthen the new state. And yes, at first it may feel unnatural. That is because you are leaving an old identity behind. But soon, silence becomes home. You will also notice that your imagination becomes clearer, less cluttered, less conflicted, because you are no longer feeding it contradictory images. Silence simplifies creation. Let me say this as plainly as I can. You do not manifest what you want. You manifest what you consent to being true. Silence is consent. When you stop protesting reality, reality rearranges itself. And now, as we come to the final moments of this message, I want you to feel this, not as an idea, but as a lived truth. Right now, wherever you are, pause for a moment. Let the body soften. Let the breath slow. Feel the quiet presence that has always been there beneath the noise. That presence is the operant power. From this place, you do not chase, you attract. You do not demand, you allow. You do not struggle, you assume. The world will continue to shout. It will offer you reasons to doubt, to fear, to explain. But you know now that your power lies elsewhere, in the stillness, in the feeling, in the knowing. Say nothing, not because you are powerless, but because you are certain. And as you walk forward from this moment, carry this with you. Let your life be the evidence. Let your calm be the proof. Let your results speak louder than any words ever could. Remain faithful to the unseen. Remain loyal to the feeling of fulfillment. And remember always, when you are silent in the assumption of being, everything you desire moves toward you naturally, inevitably, and in perfect order. That is the law. That is the secret, and it has always been yours.